Good day, everyone. This is Rémi, and this is episode 3 of the show. So, this is Saudi Arabia. And in this episode, I am going to share with you about what's going on at the moment in my country, Saudi Arabia, and the topics that I'm going to share with you. You can find all the links, all the resources that you might need to have more readings about what's going to be shared in this episode can be found in the description box below. And don't forget to share and subscribe and recommend this channel and episode to everyone who's interested about Saudi Arabia in general and the situation of human rights abuses, violence in Saudi Arabia. So, in this topic, or in this episode, I'm going to share with you about the latest updates about the merge of the Saudi Live Golf Tour with the GBA Tours, and also I'm going to share with you about the latest news that has been out in the past few days, which is about the Fifth Pro uh, claiming that there are several players that are not getting their wages from the Saudi clubs, and it's not just about the foreign players, but also local players in Saudi Arabia are not getting their wages, whether in full or in some part of it. And then the last topic will be about the human rights situation in Saudi Arabia. And in this topic, I'm going to talk about what was happening in the past few weeks, especially the visit of the MPS to France and also the execution of 7 people in the country. All right. For this topic, the first one, which is about the latest updates, if you follow the news, and you can find the links in the description box below, there are some news from the US saying that there will be some sort of investigation and it might go to the court by the Department of Justice, and they want to use the antitrust law to stop the merge between the live tours that is being established by the Saudi Public Investment Fund with the GPA tours. And the reason for that is because they claim that if they use the antitrust law to stop this merge, is because there could be some sort of monopoly, and that monopoly might affect the golf industry in general and also might affect the other sport uh, major sports in whether in the US or around the world. And what we can see at the moment is what's happening in soccer or in football, especially the current transfers between players from Europe moving from Europe to Saudi Arabia. This is one of the things that the Saudi regime is trying to work on, which is making a monopoly of football world. So if this investigation went through and it went to the court and then it was against, then uh, that's a good news for everyone who have a passion in sport in general, and those who feel like they can enjoy the sport whether by playing it or watching it or supporting any sport. Because if you keep watching what the Saudi regime was doing in the past few years, you will notice that they are focusing more on entertainment industry and sport industry. And when you look specifically at sport industry, you will notice that they are trying to be partnership. They are trying to be sponsoring a lot of sports events, and even if they don't really have that fan base in the country about specific sport, for example cricket, you still can see some sort of interest, some sort of partnership with the Saudi regime in that sport. And I give you an example. If you watch the Indian cricket league, you will see in the banners in all the matches there is some sort of partnership advertisement about Saudi Arabia, and it's about Visit Saudi, which is the famous logo that the Saudi regime is using to attract people to visit Saudi Arabia, which is Visit Saudi. Have a look at the one of the matches in the Indian Cricket League, and you will see that. So, and in Saudi Arabia, the people in Saudi Arabia, the locals, we don't play cricket. However, the foreign people who are working in Saudi Arabia, who are living miserably, and they don't have any sort of labor rights in Saudi Arabia, many of them are coming from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Those people, they play cricket. So at some point, they can have the ability to watch their country's cricket league, and they will see that, especially the Indian Cricket League. This is one of the examples, but let's focus on this one, the GBA Tours merging with the Live Tours. So that's the latest news from the US. And also from the US, there was an opinion written by one of the writers in the Washington Post, claiming that the Saudi regime is using its public investment fund to fund or to have some sort of control to the golf industry or to the golf sport as a sport or any other sport, is that the war in Ukraine, the invasion of Russia to Ukraine, has made some sort of high percentage or high price of oil. So the position of Saudi Arabia in this situation or in this war is to sell all its oil to the European countries or to the Western world in a high price. So when they have that high profit from selling in high prices in oil, of their oil or of the Saudis' oil, then they can fund all of these projects that they are trying to do. And one of them is trying to have this merge and full control of the golf sport. And also, a few days ago, there was another news talking about the Khashoggi, Jamal Khashoggi widow, speaking out about this merge and also about the country itself. And the main point was she, sorry, and the main points is she doesn't want the international community, the global community, to impose any sort of penalties or punishment towards the country, which is Saudi Arabia, more than the House of Saud regime itself, particularly MPS or Mohammed bin Salman, Mr. Bonso. So for this reason, she spoke out, and also she talked about the merge that is happening at the moment because it's a big topic, I believe, in the US. And that's why she mentioned something about the country itself, that she sent a message to the world and to the US government as well, that if you want to punish Saudi Arabia, don't punish Saudi Arabia as a country, because we are the people. We have nothing to do with what the MPS is doing to the country in a global stage. That's why she sent this message. That's why she sent this message through that interview. You can look up in the description below, and you can find that link about that interview. So that's what's going on in Saudi Arabia, the latest updates of the merge between the live backed by the Saudi regime with the GBA Tours. And the second topic is going to be about the main topic of this episode, which is about the Saudi clubs don't pay foreign and local players their wages. And if you still keep watching the news about football news and what's going on, especially in Europe and the transfers that are happening at the moment, you will notice that there are some players have been offered already a huge amount, a massive amount of money to come over to Saudi Arabia for the next season, or at least for the next few seasons. And one of them is, as you have seen last week, Karim Benzema, Cristiano Ronaldo before, and the latest news is about Kante, the French midfielder player, who is going to join, probably will join the Saudi League along with Benzema. And other players as well are going to join, and they are going to get massive, massive amounts. So what happened is the Fifth Pro, that organization that has thousands of players under its umbrella, is claiming that in its statement in the website, stating that one of the countries that don't pay its players is Saudi Arabia, and this is a warning for you. You have to be careful. You have uh, to consider again whether if you need to go to Saudi Arabia to play or not. You have to consider your wages. And if you also keep if you keep watching the news as well, there were some other good decisions have been made by uh, some famous and well-known players and coaches around the world who have already refused to join the Saudi League in the next season or the next few seasons. And the most famous one is Lionel Messi, the best player of the world, who refused to join Al Hilal club, along with other players who have joined earlier and they might join in the future. So Lionel Messi refused to join, which is a good decision for him. And it actually doesn't matter if the reason was because of money, or he has enough money or not, or because he needs more fame or not, or he needs to be uh, in a good condition where he has a quiet life with his family or not. And it's all about what that player feels. So in the case of Lionel Messi, he felt that a quiet life, the culture of the society itself matters more than the money. Because if you look at Messi himself, he has enough money. He already made massive amount of money during his career until now. So he doesn't really care about money more than about the society, the living situation, the environment in the country. Does it look like Europe or to his home country or not? So based on that, he chose to be in the US, which is a very good decision. And other players and coaches have already followed Messi. For example, Jose Mourinho, the coach of AS Roma, he also refused an offer to coach the Saudi national team. And there are other players as well who have already refused that because they are not focusing more on money than the society's living system, and some of them human rights situation, some of them about the LGBTQ community, and many other reasons. But this is a good decision that has been made, especially by Messi and Moreno. Why? Because if you look at the careers of these two people, you will know, you will realize that, especially Messi, if you ask anyone who is a big fan of soccer, who really have realistic understanding of soccer, if you ask them about the best player of football at the moment, they will tell you Lionel Messi. So imagine that the Saudi regime has grabbed Messi and bring them down to Saudi Arabia. Do you know what does that mean? That means, in general, that MPS has some sort of full control of the sport of soccer. Why? Because they bought Cristiano Ronaldo. They have bought one of the big clubs in the Premier League, and they are targeting other clubs as well in the future. And they are trying to host as much as possible of soccer events. And one of the biggest one is coming in 2027, which is AFC Asian Cup. And also they have bought a lot of partnerships. They have bought them. That means with money, the people's money of Saudi Arabia, they could bought all or many of the sports in the world, or the big ones like cricket, for example, uh, like soccer, like the one in that was in Qatar, the World Cup, the promotions, the partnerships. So they have bought all of that. So if they bring Messi down to Saudi Arabia, then that means they have that sort of full control over sport in general. And somehow they are trying, of course, to bribe the FIFA, and they try to use the money to use the money to buy those people in FIFA, and they can manage all of that. They can do all of that, but so far they already failed to bring Messi, because Messi represents soccer itself, at least in this period of time. Messi represents soccer, and if they couldn't bring Messi, then that's some sort of a big dilemma, not to the people of Saudi Arabia, not to the league itself in Saudi Arabia, not to the country itself, Saudi Arabia, but to MPS. Because imagine that you have a megalomaniac psychopath person who wants to control over every single thing in the world, on this earth, every single thing, especially if it's the best value of that thing. In soccer, the best value in soccer at the moment is Lionel Messi. Imagine you have Messi in your pocket. Who's gonna be above Messi? Who's gonna be above you? You are going to be at the top, and then Messi, and then Cristiano Ronaldo, and then the other players and clubs. But luckily that didn't happen. So MPS have to come up with different ways, different plans, different strategies to work out to be the top of the top in soccer. And that means he will try his best to host the World Cup for men and women, and sponsor all of these sports, all of these events in soccer in any grade. That means Olympics, under 17, under 20, all of them. He will try to control all of them by buying those hosts and put his logo to tell the people to visit Saudi and become the main sponsors of those events. That's one of the other plans that he might work on in the near future. And I have a message before we move on. As I said, it's a good decision for players like Lionel Messi, Mourinho, and other players and coaches who have decided, or I hope they will decide to not come over to Saudi Arabia to be part of this supposedly to be independent football federation, but now it's going to be completely controlled by the Saudi regime, in particular the Saudi Public Investment Fund. Because when they use this as a company or as a fund or a public fund, then the FIFA might think it is not controlled by the government. But the reality is it is 100% controlled by the not the government, by the House of Saud family, particularly the regime, because they are the family who are controlling the country itself. So I have a message to the players who are about to get some offers to come to Saudi Arabia, and also to the coaches. And I hope that it will be delivered to them and they will share it, and they consider whether if they need to join the Saudi league in the next in the whether in the near future. And my message is, you are coming down to Saudi Arabia, and you know already the situation of human rights, the LGBTQ community, and the women's rights abuses and violence in general in Saudi Arabia. So if you don't really care about those values that you always promote in your games while you are in Europe or wherever you are in the world, and also if you don't care about that, and if you think more about, for example, money, or for example the society and the life that you are going to have while you are staying in Saudi Arabia, or for any reason, I'm sure that there are a lot of alternatives, a lot of other ways where you can move somewhere else, has better condition of working, better condition of living, better condition of having good wages, more than Saudi Arabia. Because when you look at Saudi Arabia itself, as a human being, you will notice that this country is closed, is conservative, and they really don't care uh, about you as a player, as a valuable player who might make a difference for the league in the next decades, more than that you are an asset and you are a slave that belongs to the House of Saud. Because the mindset of House of Saud towards the players or towards any other thing that they want to have control of is money. They 100% believe that with money they can buy everything, not anything, everything, everything. Of course, they want. In this case, they want to have as much players and coaches as possible. Why? Because they know those players can be used, can be a tool to reflect on the country itself, to reflect and make a positive or even negative uh, impact about the MPS, which is a new description that I'm going to give him, which is called uh, MPS is megalomaniac psychopath Mr. Bond. So that's my word to that's my message to those players and coaches who have might think at first that money might change their lives, which at some point yes, but they have to consider, because if they don't care, for example, about human rights, about the living situation, about the how they're going to enjoy the league, if it's a valuable league, a good league, how they can improve their skills, and are they going to enjoy their lives while they're staying in Saudi Arabia or not. If they don't care about all of that but focus more on money, they will get enough money to be to have new life, or to start with a new life, or to buy new houses or new cars and all of these things. But you have to remember that there are players, foreign and local players, who are not getting their salaries until now. And they're struggling with the Saudi clubs to get their salaries. So don't expect that if they offer you, for example, 50 million a season, or 100 million a season, or even 10 million a season, that you are going to be that rich as easy as you might think. You might really struggle, and you might be in big trouble while you are still in Saudi Arabia. Why? Because they're not paying you the money that you're supposed to have, and that's what you have in the contract. So don't assume that you will get the same pay on time in full as you are in Europe or in your own country or somewhere else. If you come to Saudi Arabia, probably you won't get the full amount of your salary, and you will be under pressure all the time, because they expect you to give them results the next day you join the club. So they are not patient. Like the people in Saudi Arabia, especially those clubs, they are not patient, because they assume that within one match, two matches, you already started to scoring to make a difference, which is really hard. If you look at some sort of factors in Saudi Arabia, it's pretty hard to get along with the league, with the environment, with the society, because it takes time. It takes time. That's the reason. It takes time, and they don't want to give you that time to get along with all of that as you're supposed to have. They just want you to get the job done immediately. That's why you don't expect to get salaries on time and in full. And if and well, one of the main reasons to bring you down as a player or a coach to Saudi Arabia is to say something good about the country, about the government, about the tourism, about the culture, about how open the country is to the world, more than as you are a player, more than as a player or coach who wants to make a difference in the country itself and who wants to really contribute to make a huge difference for the next generations. It's more about you are a face for the government, for the House of Saud in particular, and that's why they have bought you more than they have brought you down to make a difference. So my voice is try to be the voice for everyone in Saudi Arabia, especially for the women's, because they're struggling until now, and for the minorities like the LGBT community. And money can be earned everywhere, not just in Saudi Arabia. So this is the end of the topic, and the second or the last topic, which will be about the human rights situation in Saudi Arabia. So in this topic, which is the last topic of this episode, I'm going to share with you about latest news, and one of them is a message to be hopefully it will be shared and sent to the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, and I hope that Macron will really consider the human rights situation in Saudi Arabia, because it's been like too much for this president to act the way he's acting, not towards the country more than to the MPS, the megalomaniac psychopath, Mr. Bonso, Mohammed bin Salman. Because if you watch the news in the past few days, there was a trip and considered as a work lunch between MPS and Macron in France, and that's really annoying because Macron is the person in this is the person representing a big country like France who is acting like this towards MPS. And if you look at the past few years, when Saad al Hariri, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, was arrested, or let's say was kidnapped in Saudi Arabia and forced to be resigned as a Prime Minister of Lebanon, Macron himself came down to Saudi Arabia. He traveled all the way from France to Saudi Arabia to free Saad al Hariri, the Prime Minister of Lebanon back then. That was the first action unnecessarily taken by Macron for the sake of MPS, not for the sake of Saudi Arabia or for the sake of Lebanon or the people of Lebanon or the sake of Saad al Hariri himself or not. No, it's for the sake of MPS. And then the second event, when they met in Argentina, I believe, during the economic summit, the G20 summit, Macron claimed or has a talk with MPS, and it was some sort of like a big brother talking to a small brother to not repeat the problem he has made, which was about the case of Jamal Khashoggi back then. And also, Macron came down to Saudi Arabia again when MPS was isolated by the whole world, and he was kind like stuck in Saudi Arabia for years, and he was acting like uh, really like a person who really cares for himself. So Macron came down to tell him that there was an issue, and that issue has something to do, I think, with oil and with something. I need to check that out. And Macron has came down to Saudi Arabia again to 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 make MBS more open to the world, something to do with economy. But he came down again, and you can check the link below uh, for more resources, for more understanding of this particular visit of Macron to Saudi Arabia. And now, not now, sorry, there was another visit by MPS to Macron when MPS felt like he's more accepted by many countries in the world, by many governments around the world. He made a big visit. First, he visited Greece, and before that, I think it was Turkey, and then he went to France, and he was welcomed by Macron a few years ago. And now he made another visit to France to meet with Emmanuel Macron just a few days ago. So when you look at these kind of relationships and how France, the government of France, I believe the people of France don't agree with what's happening between the relationship of the government of France and the House of Saud regime, because they already know what's wrong with the House of Saud regime. And they are also considering some other army relationships, trade relationships, tourism relationships, and trade relationships in general. But the government and what Macron is doing actually is really annoying. He's hosting a killer, a person who is violating women's rights, a person who is violating minorities, who is killing people of Saudi Arabia. He's hosting him like he's just like any other president in the world. That's really annoying. My message to Macron is at least do something before you leave the presidential office of France in the near future. If you lost the elections, probably you will lose. So at least do something for the people of Saudi Arabia. At least do something that the people of France will see you as a person who is trying to make a change in Saudi Arabia to make that country as a free country, a democratic country, just like how the French people did when they went to revolution to become a free and democratic country owned by the people, not by a specific family or specific individuals, like the case in Saudi Arabia. And be the voice, make a change, at least contribute to free to guarantee that there are some sort of human rights exercised in Saudi Arabia freely. And if you contribute, the people will remember you as a person who made that sort of contribution and made the change and helped the people of Saudi Arabia to have their own freedom and democracy and human rights. And the second topic in this is the latest news from Amnesty Organization, and they claim that there are and some other NGOs claim that there were like 7 people of Saudi Arabia who have been executed, and those people has nothing to do with terrorism or killing others and all of these big crimes. And those people are from the minorities, and they were charged because of related terrorism crimes, which didn't prove that. And considering the judicial system in Saudi Arabia is fully controlled by the House of Saud regime, particularly by MPS. So how can you expect a fair trial towards these people and you get this result? So the whole situation, the whole process was unfair, not transparent, not credit, and not true. And imagine this is what's happening. And imagine at the same time, the Saudi regime is trying to bring players over to Saudi Arabia to be the image and the positive image of the country Saudi Arabia, particularly for MPS, not for the country, for MPS. Mr. Bonso, the megalomaniac psychopath. And I hope that they will be aware, the players and coaches, and any other individuals or any other members of any other sports or industry, to be aware of what's going on in Saudi Arabia. They have executed 7 people just in the past few days with no fair trial, with no judgment, fair and just trials, with no representation of lawyers, independent lawyers who can defend them, with no transparency, with no credibility, and with full control of the judicial system in the country. That's what happened to those people, and more people are going to be executed in the near future. So if you come in, if you are planning to come down to Saudi Arabia, if you get an offer as a player or coach to come down to Saudi Arabia, consider this as one of the options that prevent you to come to Saudi Arabia. And how would you really feel when you come to Saudi Arabia and you know that in your neighborhood or in the city that you are playing at, people are getting executed, women are getting violated and abused by the government, by the families with the watch of the government itself, and do nothing about it, with the miserable laborers who are building the country with no rights, with no human rights, with no political rights or whatsoever at all. Imagine you live in this type of condition while you are trying, or you are trying to be the best of you, to contribute something to the sport in Saudi Arabia, and all of these is happening just in front of you. So this is Saudi Arabia. This is the end of this topic, and I wish you a good day. And please don't forget to share and have a look at the description box for the resources and more links for more readings. And please share and subscribe and spread the word. I wish you a good day, and I will see you soon.